Hello and welcome to a video with me, Raindell, and today we'll be talking about the brand new units that are coming to our division global, and that's Elsirelle and Garvall. And I would say they're pretty highly anticipated units. Mainly Garvall, who's going to be very powerful. Let's dive into it. So, Garvall comes in with a brand new job, but what he does is he does magical based damage in the form of missile attacks and then magic attacks, while being very tanky to physical attacks. So he's kind of made to hunt physical targets that are weak to magic based attacks, and he does that extremely well. Even now in JP with a ton of EX jobs released, he's still very usable at 99 and comparable to many units at their level 120. If we quickly look at his stats, the first thing I want to point out is that he has pretty decent HP at 2.6k. He has almost 400 magic, which is insane. That does include his master ability though, so he already has a built-in 20% in there. And he's not particularly slow at 58 agility, but that's not very fast. Now, keep that number in mind, he's actually much faster than that when you factor in his passives. And then the final thing is, he has some built-in defense and spirit. He has pretty decent resistances all around. He's only weak to magic and striking attacks, and those are not very... striking attack is not extremely common. Magic attacks are pretty common. Then he has a master ability that increases the HP and dark attack from everybody on your team, so he's good in a dark team, which a lot of players already have built. And then he's resistant to, I would say, the most important 3 status effects, which are Charm, Stop, and Disable. So he's looking pretty well in that department as well. Now, I was talking about his agility earlier, and it's not much of an issue for him thanks to the Hyper Vitality support ability, and I think you're going to want to run him with this passive all the time, at least in PvP, because it's just crazy. It gives him 30% agility. Now keep in mind, passives that give agility, like Shadowrunner and Tune Up, give 12%. That's more than double the efficiency just in the agility department. But then he's also getting a ton of magic and dex. 60% is as much as self-sacrifice, which is the strongest offensive passive ability. That actually comes with a drawback. This one, the only drawback he sees is that it lasts for 5 turns. Now that might be impactful in some manual play content where battles last longer, but in arena or PvP in general, matches rarely last longer than 5 turns. Usually they're pretty short. So this is incredibly strong because it will likely last for the entire battle, especially since with those extra stats, he's just going to explode anybody he meets. So that's a very strong passive, and it makes his speed actually very fast for a couple turns. Then he can have more magic, he can have a more spirit or magic resistance if he's planning on fighting human targets, but in general, you'll probably just want to ramp up his damage really high because he's bulky against physical enemies, and that's what he wants to focus on. His new job begins with already quite a bit of AP, similar to a red mage. So he doesn't necessarily need the initial AP up, but if you're planning on having him use a lot of high cost abilities, you could be running that as well. In terms of counter abilities, I would say he has reflex in the form of physical or magic reflex, which is always fun, but he also has the option to just reduce all damage taken from steeled ephemeral form. So I would probably adjust the counter I'm using depending on what team I'm fighting. If you're fighting physical teams, hyper reactivity is great. Magical teams, magic reflex. Hybrid teams, just take the other steeled ephemeral form and then reduce damage once in a while. So these are very strong altogether. And then we're moving to his main job. Okay, so it's actually called Energist. This has a very unique feature, which is that he can do missile attacks that scale off of his magic. And he's the first character that can do that. Up until now, every magic attack has been either slashing with the Rune Knights and Spellblades, or magic. But now we're getting missile magic attacks with him, so you need to be built differently to resist those. So he can basically move and buff himself. He can deal damage. He can deal damage in the form of magic attacks as well. And then he has an AoE 100% ability with a pretty long range. But mainly, he has a physical barrier that's the exact same thing as Saintly Wall. So he's really tanky while doing a ton of damage at range with 100% accuracy. Pretty impressive so far, and the fact that he can use missile attacks means that you can't just build a magic resistance build to deal with him. We've seen a couple of those running around lately with Spellblade Sub Job and just reducing every magic attack to 1. But with him, he'll just use his Kai Shot instead and still deal a ton of damage. I would say his Energist Sub Job you probably won't use that frequently. While he has a bit stronger missile attacks in there and the ability to put people to sleep, he's going to have really good options in his sub jobs, and you will probably want to use that. Also, his Limit Burst is very good as well. It's a piercing attack that hits in a line, so if you can line it up properly, you can hit multiple people. It does a lot of damage, but mainly it decreases the target's spirit by 30, which is really strong, and then increases your own spirit penetration by 50. So it's really strong. You're going to be just ignoring the enemy spirit for that attack, and possibly one-shotting them, even if they're resistant to magical scaled attack from spirit. And then he has 2 really good sub-jobs, which are the Kotodama Wielder and the Red Mage. And Kotodama Wielder allows him to bypass the other means of resisting magical attacks, which is building spirits, because with that job, he can increase his own spirit penetration, which with his Limit Break additionally allows him to be strong even against those targets. Now, there are a couple other nice options that come with that. The first one is the option to increase his jump and move, so he has a basic 3-1 that puts him to 4-2. Another 100% hit ability, but he has something even better in his main job. And then the ability to move and attack. But mainly, if you're using this sub-job, it's probably because you want to increase your magic attack and spirit penetration. So if you're fighting high spirit targets, this will come in very handy. Then if you're not fighting high spirit targets, you will probably want to run the Red Mage job, because it provides a little bit of healing if necessary, but mainly Jamming Thrust is a really long-range attack with the chance of canceling ability activation, so it's a very powerful tool to have in your kit as well. So far he's looking really strong, but we also need to touch his TMR. That's an accessory that gives decent stats, bunch of HP, defense, and crit, but its ability is insane. It increases magic by 40% for 3 turns. Alright, not bad. But it increases magic resist penetration by 50 for 3 turns, and that is crazy, right? He can deal with magic resistance by using missile attacks, but there are a lot of mages out there that can't, and that are completely blocked by magic resistance build. Think about Sakura, for example. She's incredibly strong, but against those specific builds, she struggles a lot. If you equip this TMR on Sakura, she'll just begin ignoring 50% of magic resistance. Put a Soul of Tamasa plus 5 on top, you're ignoring 60% magic penetration now on those targets, and you basically don't care about magic resistance anymore. So this TMR will be a great enabler for any mage character that will be wearing them. So it's really, really strong against magic resistance builds. So far, we've covered Garvall. He is way above the curve in terms of the power of a 99 unit. Very, very strong dark magic attacker that's strong against physical units. If you like that, well, he might be a good unit. Now let's talk about the other one we have, and that is Elsirelle. So she, first things, has a master ability that supports light allies, and we've been seeing some nice light units lately, and also UNS coming with the FF10 release, and I know a lot of players are looking forward to that, so she's going to be great in a team with her. Now, she has 3000 HP, that's a lot. She's very tanky. She also has a lot of attack with 359. Decent agility at 59, not the fastest unit, but also not the slowest. And she has some built-in spirit. Basic move 3, jump 1, she's not extremely mobile. But then she has pretty good resistances to piercing and missile, and those are really important for her because she has abilities that support that. So she can be a really good resistance tank. She has some okay status element resistances to poison and immobilize, but that probably won't come in handy too much. One thing I also want to point out is she has a little bit of innate accuracy in her master ability, so 10 here. But then, with her passives, she can increase her accuracy further by another 25. So at that point, you've got 35 accuracy, which is a good boon. If you also equip an Alexandrite ring on her, she's probably going to be able to deal with evasion units pretty well. So, in terms of support abilities, I did just touch on Nightblade Mastery. It increases her attack and accuracy while decreasing evasion. And the decreased evasion is not a big deal because she's not really an evasion unit in general, so that won't be much of an issue. Then you could run Providence of Darkness if you're going to be fighting magic teams. She does have the Spellblade Sub Jobs, so she can increase her magic resistance further for a decent amount of resistance to magic damage, especially with her built-in spirit. But you could also build her for damage and a little bit more speed with tune-up, which I think is a fine option as well. So depending on your target, you might want to switch them from one to another. Then her counters are nothing exceptional. I would probably use Magic Guard if you're fighting magic teams. And if you're not, well, you might want Counter Swing because I've seen Predictive Fire shoot into my own team more times than I can count. So I don't like that counter very much. Now let's look at her main job. And she also comes in with a unique main job. This one is a greatsword using main job. And I guess I forgot to touch on that, but Garvall's coming with a brand new weapon type, which are gloves. So he'll be using equipment you have not already built. Well, for Elsirelle, if you already have a Golden Blade +5 or a Rune Blade, you're already equipped. You don't need to craft anything new for her. And her main job is the Nightblade, and I think it's an interesting one, right? Her basic move deals damage and has a chance to stun. But then she has double resist, which increases pierce and missile resistance for her and allies around her by 25%. And this is huge. It allows her to have really decent resistances in both those stats, but you could also run a unit like Whisper or Thancred with really high resistances already, and then team them with Elsirelle so that she just rockets their resistances all the way to 100. So she can be used for funky resistance builds that are really strong against specific teams. Then she can reduce healing power in an AoE, and we've seen how strong Dragon Raid from Kayn is. It even reduces the HP that you have when you come back to life after a full life, so it's pretty impressive. Then she can increase her slash attack and defense penetration. It actually increases slash attack for allies, just like Dwayne's ability, which is pretty strong. And if you're using tune-up, you now have 60% defense penetration, which means she's going to be hitting tanks pretty hard. And then, final thing, she can heal herself back using Drain Rush. So that's pretty good as well, and since it's her hardest hitting ability, if there's only one target in front of her, she has a high chance of using that and then healing back up. So then we have the Nightblade Sub Job, and I would say you probably won't equip this one again because she has such good sub jobs, but it has two nice things. It can absorb AP from an enemy and then do the spinning attack that hits everybody around her. So it gives her new attack patterns that are pretty nice. Her limit break is okay. It costs 43 AP to deal a bunch of damage and then decrease her AP consumption for further turns. You're probably only going to be using that if you're running bells on her. Otherwise, 43 AP will put you near 0, and then you won't have the chance to benefit from the decreased AP consumption that much. So I would not say that this is a great limit burst for her. Now, sub jobs. So, she's already really good as a resistance character with her main job, but you can equip her with Spellblade, and now she can also increase magic resistance for everyone on her team. So that's really strong. You could use Taunting Spell so that she can generate hate and become your main tank, but she's not a main tank type of character. She's a high offense character with really good resistances. So unless you're fighting targets that can't damage you very well because of the resistance advantage, you probably don't want her to be tanking too much. Then, the Dual Gunner job has some really interesting AoE options that she has on top of her other abilities. And I think that's pretty nice, right? Smokescreen will give you a bit of defense as well, but mainly being able to come in and use Horizontal Shot and Split Shot will allow her to hit targets, basically no matter how they are positioned, if you also use the AoE attacks from her main job. So I really like the idea of running her as a dual gunner. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to try that out, but it's something that I would be very excited for. Now, finally, let's touch her TMR because I think it's an okay one. It's an accessory that increases accuracy, spirit, and HP, and can increase your accuracy for 3 turns. The reason why I say it could be good is because it increases accuracy in an AoE for your allies as well, and there are not a lot of TMRs that do that. So while it's weaker than, say, Yerma's TMR in terms of how much accuracy you gain, because Yerma's TMR can give you all the way up to 60. This is good for all your team. So if you all have pretty good accuracy and just need a little bit more to be able to reliably hit evasion teams, this can be really, really good. Alright, so let's talk about the verdict. It's a tough one, because they are both great units. I would say Garvall is probably the best one, right? He is an insanely strong character. He still sees a lot of play in JP right now, and he'll remain relevant for a long time, even with the upcoming EX jobs. Elsirelle is also really interesting. She has very unique things that she can give in terms of resistances up, decreasing healing. She has a nice kit, and she's actually very interesting as well. But here's the thing, neither of those units are time limited, so unless you're planning on using them in the next couple of weeks and then you really want to build them and start using them now, I would not advise going for either of them, because you'll be making a huge dent in your vision ore right before a bunch of time limited stuff. So you could decide to go for them now, but you might be missing out on something that you won't be able to have in the long run. Whereas if you just naturally pull them and slowly build on them as you go, in the long run, your account is going to have more options. Then again, it's your call. You can do whatever you like. If you're really excited for them, why not? But I've made the following analysis myself, because I was really tempted. And depending on the banners we get, I might go for one. So if there's a guaranteed banner that I'm sure to get one of them, I might. But here's my thought. If you're pulling them now, what you're getting in terms of advantages is 2 things. You'll get their increased JP bonuses, so you can farm their job points faster. And then you also get access to their bingo boards, which means 120 free shards. 120 shards, if you were to buy them at regular price in the shop, that is the equivalent of 6,000 vision ore that you're saving. And that's pretty good. But you'll probably be spending more than 6,000 to pull one of those units. So in the long run, again, you would probably be better off just buying those shards if you really want the units and waiting to naturally pull the units, especially since we'll be getting a lot of free pulls during anniversary, and I would expect that they will be in the pool by then. Again, if you're really excited for them and you want to pull them now, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. I'm just giving you my thinking right now. And depending on the banners we get, maybe they will be really good banners that make it worth pulling on them. I know in JP there was a 3 step up banner in which you could get either unit. You were guaranteed to get one of the two for 6,000 total paid Vision Ore. So that might be a good one. If there is, I might go for it. I'm not sure. I don't have 6,000 paid Vision Ore right now, but hey, we'll see. So yeah, verdict, anniversary's coming. Do you really want them now? Then go for them. But otherwise, you'll naturally pull them eventually. And then that was it from me. This was a pretty long video, but still I hope you had a good time and then that it helps you with your decision making. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of this type of content in the future, please like and subscribe. It will make it more likely that those videos show up in your feed in the future. And then have a great rest of your day.